Again, for those who didn't quite catch it in the beginning, my name is Nicole Warschauer. I'm heading up community marketing at Trusted Health. If you're not familiar, Trusted is where modern nurses build their careers. And so if you're seeking travel opportunities, new grad resources, CEU planning, nursing news, we are here to support you in your career. And so from now on, I'm going to share my screen. I'll mute myself eventually, and we'll take it from there. So the purpose of this event, this is Nail Your Nursing Resume, but we've got so much more than that. We want you all to leave this event doing 3 things. 1 is to write a standout resume. 2 is compose a clear, compelling, and customized narrative for you, for your resume or any other documentation you provide. And then 3 is for you to be prepared to confidently interview. So not just a resume, it's everything else that you might need to find your next role. Agenda. I love agendas because they tell us where we're going. So a couple things today. We talked about the event goals just a second ago. Here's the agenda. And then we're going to talk through our 3 incredible speakers today. First, we'll talk through resume tips with Courtnay Caufield. We will discuss how to craft your narrative with Ashley Haugstatter, which is actually like a mini workshop, which is great. So if you don't have a pen and paper or pencil and paper or something to write on or scratch some notes on, kind of grab that while we get set up right now and you'll be in a good spot, or you can even take some notes with your phone. No shame in that game. And then the next item is prepping for your interview with Sarah Gray, and then getting started with Trusted with Ela Lasic, and then we'll close out. So we'll be in and out in hopefully less than an hour, and you'll be on your way with tons of awesome resources. So with that, I'm going to mute myself and let Courtnay Caufield take it away.
Hi, thank you, Nicole, and thank you everybody for joining. And it's a pleasure to be here with a great group of leaders and everybody who's interested in your resume building and also just moving into the workforce. So a little bit about me. I'm a senior executive at Kaiser Permanente up in Portland, Oregon. I'm new to this role. I also was filling out a resume about a year ago and recently came here from Los Angeles. I was a second career nurse. I started nursing school in informatics when I was on the wait list, couldn't get in, and worked every other job from the customer service desk at Target, nursing, you name it, but it all adds into your nursing profession. Things that I like, I love going to hot yoga, go to my dive bars and listen to 80s music and hang out with my kids. So here's my 2 profiles. If you'd like to follow me or connect, I'm happy to connect with you after this as well, and we'll go from there. Okay, so a few things that I was asked to speak about was about your nursing resume. And I have been interviewing folks for positions for many years, and you would really be surprised some things that we see. I know Sarah's going to talk about the interview and also some tools. We'll have some great opportunities for you today. But just to just share things with you, when you have a pile of resumes, sometimes I'll have 30, 5 to 30 in front of me at one time. I wanted to tell you about some things that catch my eye and also will help you go to the top of the pile and let's really be able to understand into this first a little bit. Some of the basic things that really do matter, contact information. Having your contact information correct and accurate seems, of course, it would be accurate, but if we go to call you or send you an email after we person and we can't get a hold of you, usually it'll go to the bottom of the pile. So that's one thing I just wanted to make sure everybody was mindful of. Also, other things about your contact information. There's a lot of people who go by nicknames. We'd love to know how to call you, your pronouns, and make it simple for somebody to connect with you and remember your name. Email may sound silly, but I have had interesting emails that I've had to contact people at. Really throws me for a loop when I'm emailing back sexy hot mama 12 for a nursing interview. So we do look at that. And other contact info nowadays, like you saw in my profile, was my LinkedIn, my Twitter, my Instagram. We love to look folks up and check out, you know, what kind of things are you saying about yourself? Would that represent the group well? Would that represent the organization well? And just having that on there is actually very helpful as well, because sending a letter in the mail will not work anymore. Formatting. When you have your resume and you're working on that, again, we'll go through some tips and tricks later, but something that's important to me as a leader who's looking at resumes is it easy on my eyes? Is it 10 font or is it 25 font? Is there 20 pages or 1 page? Simple breaks in between sections. It's really hard to get everything about you into 1 page or 2 pages. So oftentimes people will cram a lot in there in 20 columns, and you just get a little lost. So it really is helpful to really be mindful about the look and professionalism of your resume as well. So we'll go through that formatting later as well. Education, work history. So that from a high level view, of course you're going to put your work history, of course you'll put your education. I have seen people list just their most recent college that they got their degree from. I've also had people list their elementary school. You can go online and look and see what other people do, but is it relevant? What do I need to know about you? And in addition, the work history, we do have people who put, you know, I'm only going to put my nursing school if you haven't worked as a nurse, or I'm only going to put my last organization. Look at the history. You see a chronological timeline, and you are looking for if somebody's moving jobs every year. Is there a large gap in history? But also, if there are jobs outside nursing, don't omit them. You know, like I mentioned, my first jobs as a waitress or working at Target, I also have had people work for Disneyland. I those programs, customer service programs, excuse me. And that is something that is enticing to me. And I say, I want to learn more. What would add more to making a well-rounded group of people with different backgrounds and experiences? So don't hesitate to maybe put something in your slide. Okay, so tip number 1, don't overshare. So we're starting with some do's and don'ts, and I'm sure everybody on this call has either other items or other tips and tricks to add in as well. So I'm interested in hearing more from you, either in the chat room or later after the program ends. So long paragraphs and full sentences are a no-go. We obviously don't want a ton of acronyms, but if you're writing, it's not an APA paper. So if it gets very wordy, you're not going to get through much of that. A long copy and paste of your job description may be a little bit difficult to follow. So I'm breaking it up a little bit. Can you hear me okay? Here and there?
Yeah, you're breaking up just a touch here and there.
Okay, I'm going to try to lean. Oh, lots of breaking up. Does that sound any better?
Sound okay right now. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll just keep going.
Better when close. You may say
it might be when you talk too fast.
Okay.
It might be when you talk too fast. So.
All right, I will talk a little bit slower for everybody. Long paragraphs and full sentences are a no-go. I'm getting all sorts of tips on here. All right. Don't bury the most important elements. Can I get a thumbs up if that sounds better? Yeah. Okay. Thank you all. Don't we love technology? This is like a resume. We're learning how to build it. So back to the first tab there, the long paragraphs and full sentences. So just making sure it is clear, concise. Tell me about your job without copying and pasting the whole entire thing. Don't bury the most important elements. If you have a paragraph with a couple things in there about how you excelled in a certain area, or you had some opportunity for an experience on a project that would be important for us to know, if you get a little wordy, we won't catch it. So just highlight the most important things. All right, next slide. Tip number 2. Here's a do. Do be professional. As I was mentioning earlier, audit your own social media. The hint is this is part of your resume too. We do look everyone up. We do look folks up, and we look to see not what do they have a ton of experience, tell me a little bit more about them, but oftentimes, is this someone who looks like they bring joy to our team? Is this someone who has a lot of political views or views that they're very firm about that they may be talking about their employer about on social media? Someone mentioned that some of their social media is private. It's okay in the world nowadays to have social media, LinkedIn profiles. We do need that opportunity, and it is great to be able to put face with a name. So just make it look professional, and just be aware that there are people who may say, hey, I want to learn a little bit more about this person. And oftentimes, it's been very helpful to be able to have a face with a paper and a name. Use a professional email and photo. I mentioned earlier of an example of an email that I had run across, and it just made me laugh and think, are they really self-aware that this nursing is a profession and we want our team to really put their best foot forward? Also, with a professional photo, either on your Outlook, sometimes people don't realize when they send emails, their Outlook profile photos or something in their signature line goes with it. So just remembering to use a professional photo as well. It doesn't have to be taken at a studio, just something that looks nice and represents you the way you would like to be represented. And I think Sarah will talk later about interviewing skills, but this also is a resume when you're doing things online, when you're having video interviews as well. Okay, tip number 3, don't downplay your skills and your experience. Again, don't underestimate some of the work experience outside of nursing. When you scroll through and look through experiences that people have had, you're also looking for different variety of experience. A lot of people nowadays, I see them putting members of clubs, members of professional organizations. It's great to hear. It's great to know. If you don't have time to be in 500 clubs, that's okay. What are some other things that interest you, and bring a whole rounded person into being part of the new team? Don't fully copy and paste past job descriptions. If you mentioned that you worked as a nurse on CV Acute, I may not know what CV Acute is, so spelling that out is helpful. And also, if the resumes are going to recruiters first, they may be screening for keywords, and if you have acronyms, it may not hit them exactly, and they may be looking for exact descriptions. So use full words where they can see that explanation. And copying and pasting the full job description, it would get very wordy and maybe have some things in there that we don't need to know. So just be concise and help us out. If you haven't had a job description or you haven't had a job in nursing, utilizing some of your experiences to say where you did your clinical. We often see how many clinical hours in what type of units. That does help us to understand, what have you seen? What kind of experiences? Okay, next slide. Tip number 4, do set yourself apart. So thoroughly frame your work experience. Tell us a little bit about either school projects, what kind of things interest you, hearing about committees you're interested in. Even if you haven't had the opportunity to join, maybe look around and hear about committees or programs or projects that would be interesting to you. You can ask around, and just like on this call in this chat room, people can give you some really great examples. Many organizations are pursuing a magnet status, and there are some specific committees and resources that catch their eye when they see, aha, you'd be someone interested in joining our retention committee. I'd love to hear your ideas. Sharing your thoughts about improving care. Some folks put a personal statement in their resume. While still being concise, you can share a little bit about things that you would hope to do in improving care. Whether you're an experienced nurse or a new grad, sharing a little bit about why you are a nurse and a little bit about what you would like to do in order to change the world is helpful. Also, in order to share about bragging about yourself, we often tell people in an in-person interview, as Sarah will probably explain a little bit, but also on your resume, we really do want you to brag about yourself. Tell me something special about you. Tell me something about in your resume, here's something that I achieved. I had this accomplishment, I was recognized, I was commended for calling a rapid response. Those things really do stand out, and we'd love to hear more. Next slide. And to wrap it up, nice to have some things to go the extra mile. I've seen some resumes with a photo on them lately, and it's been really helpful. Just like I said, I wouldn't have to go look you up then. I can put a face with a resume. And it isn't to say, oh, this person looks like a person I'd want to hire. It really is to remember somebody and to be able to share yourself and a little bit about who you are through a photo. A personal why statement is always great, and it does set the tone, almost like a mission statement for a hospital. Tell me what you're about. Okay, next slide. That's all I have.
Well, I know we had a few questions. I was just going to kind of read these questions off so you can have a chance to answer them, Courtney. I'll start with this one. This is most recent. And this is a really fair question. Not trying to sound like a smart aleck. I was just wondering, how do we brag about ourselves and improving care or our hobbies when we aren't supposed to write full sentences? Just curious about the best way to do this.
Sure. Great question. The statement about writing full sentences, usually where I see that is in a description of a job that you were in, or in the opening paragraph where it really isn't an intro to an APA paper. Keep it simple and sweet. With something to brag about yourself, again, was recognized for being a student nurse who had called out a quality mistake or a quality near miss. Was recognized or was commended by a family member for my caring nature. Those are the kind of things where I would say to brag about. If you have any special awards, or even if you didn't have an award specifically, it can be from a colleague, a student, a teacher, or a patient or a family member.
All right, thank you for that answer. The next one, if we take time off of work, which creates a gap, but is to spend time with our children, etc., what is the best way to say that?
I think that you'll see some examples, and I think there are some examples provided at the end of this, and I've seen that question come up a few times. But explaining a gap where it was a gap in employment, personal gap, personal time, there are ways to put that because people are human, and we understand that. So having an explanation for that, and I think there are some good examples that we'll provide to you afterwards about wording with that.
Okay. This is a bit off topic, but do you have any advice for new graduates trying to apply in areas with hiring freezes and delays with getting licensed?
Great question. I think we're all experiencing that right now, and the uneasiness after the COVID where everything is kind of in freeze. It is a little bit difficult right now. So I would say if you're looking for an experience or to get a position or a role in an area where you have not worked before, you can use it as a goal statement. You can use it also as what I've done so far, as pieces that would add to the reason why I have success in this unit.
Courtney, we lost you for a second. Would you mind repeating that?
Yeah. Sorry, yes. When I turn my camera off, it seems to work. So that's what I'm going to do. My mention there was about share experiences from other roles if you haven't worked in a specific department that your goal is to get into. As an example, if you want to work in the emergency department and you've worked in med-surg or labor and delivery, I would share examples of how you're able to triage quickly, fast-paced. What are the desired skills and abilities of somebody who works in that department, and utilize opportunities from other experiences in other areas.
Perfect. We have, I think, time for maybe one or two more. Any tips to help with the ATS systems? I'm not sure what that is, but maybe you do, Courtney.
I'm not sure what ATS is.
I think the question there is around your resume getting through the applicant tracking system, that it gets in front of recruiters so that it even can get passed to a hiring manager.
And I can do some follow-up work on that and ask my recruiter friends. But what I do know is sometimes they are very black and white with, if it doesn't say cardiac and it says CV acute, they may not catch those things. Most of them are skilled for those things. But what I've heard physically from folks is that, no, this unit meant this, or my experience is this. And also, as a tip, it's hard to say if you are, let's say you're a graduate, but you haven't taken your NCLEX yet. Maybe don't put that you are RN licensed, because it could fall back on you in the future. Just say license or test pending.
Okay.
Hopefully
awesome.
that's helpful.
Yeah. So there's a few questions about cover letters. I was just going to see if you could just give us a kind of like, how long should it be? What should it include? And is there a difference between a cover letter, a personal statement, and a letter of intent? Like, what are the differences between those?
I think yes to all. Wherever you're applying sometimes has specifics. So if it says attach cover letter and then attach resume separately, make a separate cover letter. And again, when we go through Resume Builder, you'll see a few things. If you have a question, you can ask for an example from the folks that you're applying from. If all else fails, for me personally, if there is a cover letter and I have it in my hands or I have it electronically, it is just a break before the resume. If it's required, just look at the required elements on there. Worst case scenario, if it does have your name and the position you're applying for, and then at the next part of your resume it has a personal statement, or you put your personal statement on your cover letter, as long as the cover letter is short and concise, my personal opinion is it's fine to have whatever you desire on there, and then the resume with the meat.
Just to clarify, what is the difference between a cover letter and a personal statement?
From what my opinion is, a personal statement is a little snippet about, here's something about me. My desire is to be a nurse in a cardiovascular ICU unit. I bring these skills, traits, and abilities, and I hope to impact this way. What are you looking to gain, and who are you? A cover letter having just more of a generic, almost like a title page with demographics.
Okay, I think that's all the time we have for questions for this section, but we will have a chance to answer more questions later on.
Great. Hopefully I answered all your questions that I could, and I'm happy to answer any more at the end. And good luck to everybody. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks so much, Courtney. So my name is Ashley Haugstatter. I am so excited to be here with you guys today. Thank you so much for having me on, Casey and Nicole, and thank you guys for being with us. We're excited to give you some actionable tips, and we're actually going to do a little mini workshop here in just a minute so that you can come away with some powerful stuff to actually put on your resume. So now's the time. You can get out your pen and paper if you have it, and we're going to get started. So a little bit about me. My title at my current job is Manager of Nursing Relations and Retention. That's like this super crazy long title, and really what it means is that I'm a nursing support person. So I work with human resources, nursing leadership, and our educational services department to help recruit, retain, and recognize the nurses at our hospital, as well as the nursing students that we have. And I actually oversee a large group, about 80 nursing students that work at the hospital as student nurse assistants. So I am looking at resumes all the time to hire my own people, and then also to decide who we're going to take on board as new graduate nurses. So I'm frequently looking at resumes and cover letters, so I'm happy to answer some of those questions at the end too when we have time. Before this position, I was a pediatric ICU nurse. That's where I started straight out of school, and I was there for about 3.5 years, and I had the time of my life there. It was great. I'm also the founder of the Nurse Mentor, which is a personal and professional coaching business that I have. It's for nurses by a nurse, and it's been such a joy to be able to get into that and help nurses in that way. Fun fact about me, I built and lived in a 345 square foot tiny house during college. So that's where I lived, where I was in nursing school. So I was there. It was me, my boyfriend, and our dog. It was quite an adventure. And then there you'll see some of my social handles. If you guys want to connect, I would love to meet you on Instagram or on Twitter, so you can catch me there, and I hope to get to know some of you. So let's jump in now. I am going to talk to you guys about the nursing narrative. So you've probably heard this called a couple of different things. It can be a nursing narrative. Sometimes it's called a personal statement, but that's usually a little bit longer. You might have heard it called a professional summary. And it used to be called like an objective. So this is really the top line of text that's going to be at the very top of your resume. We've kind of gotten away, I feel like, from objectives just because you're applying for this job, and so we can kind of understand what your objective is going to be. So really what your goal is now with a professional summary or a nursing narrative is to give a digital first impression. It's to give a quick snapshot of who you are, what you've done, and how you're going to serve. And so what you want to do with this is really just give a quick peek into who you are. This is your opportunity to really show a recruiter or a hiring manager who you are in a really quick space of time. I don't know if you guys have heard this statistic before, but typically recruiters are only going to look at your resume initially for 6 seconds. And so if this is the top thing that they're going to look at, you really want to pique their interest right from there. So I always tell people there's really 3 things that you're looking to do with your nursing narrative or your professional summary. You want to keep it really simple, really clear and concise. Like Courtney was saying before, you want to make sure that this is straight to the point, but you also really want to maximize the impact that you're having. So you want to have few words that tell somebody a lot about you. You also want to correlate with the job description. So this is where, we were just kind of tying into the ATS, so the applicant tracking system. This is one place that you can do that, is by taking some of the words that you see in the job description that you're applying to and popping it right into your nursing narrative or your professional summary. And again, you really want to just pique the interest of your reader. The goal is for them to read these quick couple sentences and say, I want to know more about that person. Let me keep going and continue seeing, oh, where have they worked? Let me see if they can back up what they're saying here. And so that's really what you're looking to do. You want to think, okay, if they only read this about me, am I truly telling them who I am? Do they get a good picture of who I am? And this is such a thing that I feel like we tend to overcomplicate because there is such pressure to make this really good. But you can keep it really simple. And we're going to go through a framework in just a minute to kind of show you how simple it can really be. So I do have an example up here. This is for a new graduate in particular. And we'll go through exactly kind of how I built this, but just to kind of move through what this is saying, if you're a new graduate, you want to say that right in the first sentence. So right here, compassionate and hardworking new graduate. There's no hiding that on a resume. You shouldn't try to do that as a new graduate. You don't want to waste anybody's time, whether it be yours or the hiring manager or the recruiter. So you want to come right out and say that, own it, love it. And then the other thing that I always like to put in the first sentence, so a new graduate nurse ready to further cultivate nursing skills through serving the critical care population. I really love to put the word serving all over resumes, and that kind of connotation, because we have to remember when we're submitting a resume, what hiring managers and recruiters want to know is what value you are going to bring to the table. They want to know, how is this person going to serve my patients? How are they going to contribute to the unit? Like Courtney said, are they going to bring joy? What kind of person is this, and what value are they bringing to me? Why should I bring them on board? And even though, of course, when you go in for an interview, you want to make sure that it's a fit from both sides. To get yourself in for the interview, you have to make sure that you are selling yourself and that you're telling them exactly what you're going to bring to the table for them. So then moving forward, demonstrated ability to think critically. And like I said, we're going to kind of get into how to build this out. But the stuff that you want to put in this nursing narrative, you want to be able to back that up with the rest of your resume. So you don't want to repeat necessarily, because you have a very limited space to do this. It's going to be really 1 page for a new grad, 2 pages for an experienced nurse. And so you really have to maximize the space that you have as well. So don't, spend time reiterating something that you're going to say later. You want this to also be a unique like little bit of information. So let's jump to the next slide and let's get into our little mini workshop here. So you guys will see on both sides of the screen, I just have kind of a little framework built out for this, and we're gonna fill this in to make it unique to your experiences. And I said when we were going through this is kind of like nursing Mad Libs. So it breaks it down for you so that you're able to make it unique, but also so that you don't have to overcomplicate it, and that it doesn't seem as overwhelming. I know a lot of people, they'll, put off making their resume because it just doesn't seem like they can get the right words in. So let's break it down and make it a little bit more simple. We'll start on the new graduate side, and we'll break it down by sentences. And I do want to mention too, because I know Courtney had said this, sometimes you don't want to put things in a big paragraph form. So you can also kind of take these little bits of information and make bullets out of them as well. You do take up a little bit more space that way. So it's just going to kind of depend what else you have on the resume, whether you have, room for that. But so on the new grad side, let's start on our first sentence here. So we have adjective 1 and adjective 2. So you are going to pick 2 things that describe who you are at work as a nurse. And again, the 2 adjectives that you put here, you want to make sure that you have something later on in your resume that's going to back up this statement. As we like to in nursing school, as evidenced by, you want to be able to put that down on the bottom somewhere. How do I get to these 2 adjectives? So adjective 2, new graduate nurse ready to further cultivate nursing skills through serving the blank population. So whatever specialty that you're looking to go into, if it's a residency program focused on critical care, you can say that. If you're just going for a general med surg position, you can put that. So the first sentence, super simple, done. From there, you're going to go into demonstrated ability to, and this is where you're going to showcase what you've done. So you can put in here transferable skills from clinical or previous work experience. So for some people, maybe they were a nursing assistant or they were a paramedic while they're in school. And so obviously those skills are going to apply here, and you're going to be able to easily put those in there. But like Courtney was saying, if I have somebody that wants to come and be a new graduate nurse, if they don't have prior hospital experience, the next thing that I'm going to look for is going to be retail or food service in some way, because you are dealing with the exact same kind of stuff that we deal with in nursing, right? You are time managing, you are prioritizing, you are taking customer service complaints, you are doing service recovery. So all of those things can be applied to this arena. And that is really, again, what we're looking for is those transferable skills that tell me you haven't done this particular job before, but I know that you're going to be capable of it. And even if you have no previous work experience whatsoever, we all went to clinical. So you can pull different, things from clinical that you've done, whether it's, working really well as a team, therapeutic communication, all kinds of things that we do in clinical, right? You can pull that into here and use that as well. The third sentence is, you kind of have 2 options for this. And again, it's going to depend on what your previous experience kind of looks like. So if you do have something, you can put over X years or months experience in whatever that was. So, for example, over 2 years of experience in acute care, nursing assistant, whatever you're going to put there, whatever your previous job was. Or if you haven't had previous experience, you can put received or was recipient of some kind of scholarship, an award, or if you don't have either of those, you can also put something like a positive preceptor evaluation. If you've gotten, like Courtney was saying before, if you've gotten a positive comment from a patient, you really just want to take the time. I always tell people this, before you sit down and do your resume, take the time to reflect on these things. I know that's like our least favorite part of like writing our care plans in nursing school and doing our homework. Reflecting is terrible, but it can make this process a lot easier if you reflect ahead of time and say, okay, well, here's what I've done in clinical, or here's what I've done at work. And then you can kind of just plug it into here, and it makes it a lot less overwhelming. It makes it a little bit easier to kind of put it all together if you do that reflection ahead of time. So that's for our new grads. Moving over to experienced nurses, it's going to look a little bit different. So for our experienced nurse, you're going to start similarly, still with those 2 adjectives, and then you're going to say registered nurse with X number of years experience serving in X specialty. That part is super simple. From there, you're going to say at A, and if you were at a magnet hospital or a level 1 trauma center, you can put that. If you were at a smaller community hospital, you can just put at 200 bed hospital, or you can try and pick out something again that was special to you guys. Maybe you were in an ICU that got a Beacon Award. Any little special thing that you can kind of pick out and put on there, that's going to be the spot to do it. Moving on from there into the second sentence, proven expertise in managing, and then you can put in, common diagnoses that you've seen on your unit or equipment specific to that area that you've utilized, and providing adjective/organizational value care. So this is another spot where you can either tie in to the job description that you're working off of, or you can tie in an organizational value, which shows that you researched, the company that you were looking for, which is always going to be impressive to someone to say, okay, they did their homework, they know what we're about here, and we know that they are actually aligned with our values. So that can be a really strong point to put in an organizational value there. Moving down into the last sentence, highly skilled in, and then go to town. Like we were saying before, this is your time to brag. There's always a time and a place for humility. Your resume is not it. So go ahead and put, whatever it is on there that you are particularly good at. So if you're trained in a specific EMR, maybe you were a super user for something, that's a great thing to put on there. Patient communication, leading teams, working collaboratively, innovation. Like Courtney was saying, if you were on any committees or anything like that, that is great to put on there. And really what you want to do in this section also is, again, check out that job description. And if there's something that they are looking for very specifically in the nurses that are going to take this position, you can go ahead and tie in right there and say, I have this exact skill that you're looking for. This is, what I did and how I did it. And the bottom part with the insert quantifiable outcomes or achievements, that is really, really huge. People love to see metrics. Lots of recruiters, lots of hiring managers, we are nerds for that stuff. So putting in, improved, patient pain scores from X to Y, anything that you can actually put into numbers is awesome. So if you're going for maybe like a permanent charge position, you can put there, led a team of X nurses and X nursing assistants, and continue the sentence from there. Anything that you can kind of add numbers to and truly speak to, again, the value that you're going to add to an organization is going to be really beneficial, to put in this little top part. And let's see, I think I covered all of that stuff. All right, I think we're good. Questions?
We have quite a few that we didn't get through from before, so I'll just ask them real quick, and I know we're kind of running a little bit over. How long should a resume be max?
Sure. So for new grads, I would definitely say keep it to 1 page. If you've been involved in a lot of things, this can be a little bit challenging, but you really want to pick out here what is going to, again, show that you're the right person for this particular position. For experienced nurses, if you're submitting a resume, I would keep it to 2 pages because the likelihood that a recruiter is actually going to get down to the end of that second page is even pretty low. Again, the initial looking at of a resume is going to be 6 to 20 seconds. Of course, once it gets to a hiring manager, especially if it is for like a leadership position or something like that, they're going to look much, deeper at it. But you really want to keep it as concise and impactful as you possibly can, just to try and make sure that they really do read exactly what you want them to read.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Another one was, how do you avoid just copying it? If you were, for example, a travel nurse, how do you list that experience, and how do you avoid just copying and pasting the same experience over and over again with each assignment? Or if you just around a lot in general. Yeah,
absolutely. So again, when we're looking at resumes, generally speaking, especially because there are quite a few, nurse recruiters out there who were RNs previous to coming into an HR position. If you write trauma nurse on there, I know what that means. I know what you did as far as tasks. So you really want to go beyond tasks. You want to go ahead and then put, one bullet in there that says, I was on this committee at this hospital. So you want to differentiate what you did at different places. Even better is if you can show growth from one place to another. So maybe, like, again, I'm trying to, like, committees, maybe you were a preceptor at one place. If you can show growth on your resume, that's also impressive, because you're moving from the same specialty to a different place. So how did you adapt? How did you get better? How did you grow? Because that's what people are looking for too. How are you going to get involved? How are you going to improve the unit, improve quality outcomes? Any of that kind of stuff is going to be really good. Instead of just putting the same bullet points underneath it, you want to say, okay, well, what was different about my experience here? Did I use a different EMR? Did I use different equipment? Was it a different level of acuity? So you want to take that time to reflect on what was different between the two places, brainstorm it out in a separate list before you even start your resume, so that you don't sit staring at your page on the computer. Brainstorm that stuff out, and then you're going to be able to use it, plug and play, and you'll be good to go.
Perfect. Would you recommend including like a birth date or your age on your resume?
I do not recommend doing that. So there are lots of questions that HR are not allowed to ask you. That is one of them. They're not permitted to ask your age. They're not permitted to ask about your family life, so whether you have kids and things like that. So it's not necessary to put it on a resume, and I don't think it gives you a leg up really in any way, so I wouldn't include that.
Okay, one last one before we move on. For new graduates without hospital capstone experience due to COVID, how would you best explain that on a resume, or would you include that in a cover letter?
Sure. So know that you're not alone is the first thing, because I know that a lot of people are feeling really distressed about that. We just had a nurse residency class come through yesterday, and that was the exact thing that they were all really focused on, that they hadn't touched a patient since March. I don't think it's a bad thing to talk about in your cover letter. That's, there's definitely an opportunity for you to talk about how you handled that, how you adapted to that situation, which again can just show, adaptability is a huge transferable skill in nursing. We love to see that. We need you to be adaptable. So saying how you coped with that change and how you manage that, you can absolutely dedicate, a sentence or two in your cover letter to that. Otherwise, again, hiring managers are aware of, what has happened. Most of the students that are graduating this semester have lost, anywhere between 50 and 200 clinical hours. So, you can definitely mention it somewhere. And you can also talk about what you did instead, because a lot of people did, VSIM or some other kind of like case study or something like that. So you can certainly mention it on there. But know that that's not going to not get you a job. Because all of the new graduates are pretty much facing the same kind of thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I am Sarah Gray. I am the founding clinician here at Trusted Health, as well as head of clinical operations. I joined Trusted almost 3 years ago now, but before Trusted, I was on a pediatric med-surg transitional care unit at UCSF, where I started as a new grad and held a few different roles. Like Courtney, I guess the case could be made that I was a second career nurse because I was a child model. I was the 1997 Yo Play Yogurt Girl. I see some familiar faces out there and names, but for anyone who's interested in connecting, please feel free to reach out. That's where you can find me. But I am going to focus on, like Courtney alluded to, the interview. So we could just go to the next slide. Awesome. And so if you do your diligence and take Courtney and Ashley's advice, then you'll have the opportunity to land an interview and apply some of the tips and considerations that we have for you here. I'm going to try to keep it pretty high level. I know just for the sake of time and because we could go very, very far into depth here. But I think the thing to really think about is the interview starts far before you actually suit up, print out your resume, and walk into a door. It really starts with, like Ashley suggested, is taking the time to reflect. So the first step here is a lot of like research and reflection. Carve out the time to reflect Perhaps even journal if that's your jam, maybe even meditate, but really consider the following questions. What are your career goals? What are you specifically seeking in your first, if it's you're a new grad, or your next opportunity? What are your personal values, and what do those even mean to you? What's your superpower? What are you better at than most people? And conversely, what are the areas for growth? And like it's not a time to, it is a time to be vulnerable. And so enlist friends, family members who can help you really understand what those answers are. And then think about what would you need to be set up for success in this specific opportunity. That's really reflecting. The research part, like Ashley also alluded to, is super important. So you want to gather as much information as you can about the facility and the unit. You want to understand mission, vision, values, initiatives, anything that makes that facility or unit very, very specific or unique. And then that also extends to the interviewers. So you want to do your diligence in understanding who it is you're interviewing with. This will show that you did your diligence and your homework and you show up prepared. And you can then, like we'll get into a little bit later, as tailor really specific questions to the people that you will be spending some time with. And then after doing that research, you can kind of go back to your reflection and think about how those two align. So from what you know now about this opportunity at this specific facility or unit, how does this align with your career goals? And then the third piece here is connecting. So if you have the opportunity to reach out to any contacts, you can provide personal insight about what it might be like to work on that specific unit or facility. That will allow you to go into the interview with really specific knowledge and be able to potentially speak to how your goals, your experience aligns to what it's really like to work there. If you don't know someone who works there, like feel free to reach out and network. Second, third connections. This is where it's also really important to have a LinkedIn, which is a whole nother separate conversation for us nurses. And then the other thing to consider too is use your alumni network. I heavily relied on my alumni network as a new grad when I was looking for a job out here in San Francisco and ultimately was preparing for an interview. The second piece here is preparation and practice. While all of this is important, if you only take one thing away from this, it's that you have to prepare and you have to practice. Don't let the interview be the first time that you're talking through some of these, recalling some of these scenarios, talking through certain questions, like talking about yourself, which can be really uncomfortable for some people. And so really, really set yourself up for success by letting this be like the 10th, 20th, 100th time you're doing it. But as you'll probably be doing when putting together your nursing narrative in your resume, like you want to really recall specific scenarios. And this is from clinical experience too, as a new grad, and maybe it isn't just clinical, it's also professional too. But scenarios where you can speak to either how you handled them really well or what you learned from them if they didn't go well, because you will get asked those questions. I touched on this, but do mock interviews, and not just with the people who you feel really comfortable with. Do it with people who might intimidate you a little bit or make you feel nervous or you're not super comfortable around, because that will put you in the right mindset for when you're in a real life interview. Prepare questions. You likely will be given time to ask whatever questions you have. I think what's really important here is don't ask questions that you could have found the answer to online, that you could have Googled. I think be as specific as possible with those questions and make them questions that you're truly interested in knowing the answer to, and thinking about what else would you need to be really excited about this opportunity or be able to make a decision about this opportunity that you weren't able to find in your research, and use that time to ask those people then. And the last piece here is plan. Don't underestimate the value of the peace of mind that planning can bring. How you'll get there, where you'll park, what you'll wear, when you'll show up, where you need to show up. And then we'll talk about this in a second, but more and more interviews are happening virtually now. So like test your Wi-Fi, like figure out where you're going to sit, what your background looks like, what you're going to wear, and like being able to access that virtual platform. I know Zoom, well, now isn't super new to most people, but I know there are a few out there. So plan as much as you can so that on the day of the interview, you can really focus on what matters. You can go to the next And then some details and considerations. So during the actual interview, what you can expect. So it's important to note that there's a couple different types of interviews. And it will depend on whether, like, it might depend on whether this is a new grad interview or not. Interviews can be done, like I had said, virtually, which is happening more and more. They can be held over the phone. They might be panel interviews, which is pretty traditional for new grad residency programs and new grad opportunities, where it's a single interview, but in a room with several different people. And then another one that you might expect is a multi-step interview. So it's multiple interviews with multiple people as part of the hiring process. The interviewers can really vary depending on the type of position you're interviewing for, but it might be a manager, it might be a supervisor, they might pull in a clinical educator, charge nurses. On my unit, we had unit nurses who were very, very involved in the interviews. So that's who you can expect. It's traditionally, I'd say, those personas, but if you also, you should get this information up front. And if you don't, feel free to ask who you will be interviewing with so that you can prepare and know who those people are. Length really depends on the interview type. It's traditionally about 30 minutes to an hour, but can be more if you're interviewing, if it's an extensive interview with either multiple people or a multi-step. Just to touch on the interview type, something to expect is sometimes the panel interviews are almost panels on both sides. So you might be being interviewed amongst other candidates by a panel of interviewers. The second piece here, so topics, this is going really back to the reflection, and this is what you can expect to be covered in the interview. So goals, like, why are you interested in this opportunity specifically? Like, be prepared to speak to that. In what ways would you utilize this opportunity to grow, to learn? What would you bring? Like Ashley said, what do you have to offer also to the facility, to the unit, rather than it just being an opportunity for you to learn and grow? Like, why should they invest in you? The other pieces here, so from an experience perspective, this is like your opportunity to be able to bring that resume to life and really speak to all of the experience you have. I think like Courtney said, don't underestimate the non-clinical experience, because there's so much value in a variety of experiences. But really thinking about, like, what makes you uniquely qualified, and that might be from like a cultural perspective too for them. Compensation is not something that is, I think, traditionally a part of an interview as much as it is for other professions or other roles. And Ella will touch on this a little bit right after this, but I'd say familiarize yourself with what to expect generally. Approximate compensation, they may ask you what you're expecting, or if you understand where that range falls. Obviously, that is probably going to be done earlier in the process, maybe before an interview, because nobody wants to waste anyone's time if that is if there's a huge delta between expectations and reality. But do your diligence. I know that can be hard, although we do have some tools here at Trusted that can help you do that. And then tips, I think, like, the most important is be yourself. You want to be sure that they are hiring you for you, and that when you get this job, you can show up at work and be yourself, and really be authentic. And I think the takeaway there is you can be professional without feeling like you totally have to conform or be someone else during this interview. Second piece, which I could probably apply right now, but I'm trying to be mindful of time, is take your time. Don't feel like you have to answer a question like right away. It actually shows a lot of poise and confidence to say, like, can I take a second to think about that? Especially if they're asking you about a clinical or professional scenario. That's totally okay. Take your time. It's much better to have a thoughtful, cohesive answer than answering on the spot for the sake of having an answer right away. And then the third piece here is be curious. This interview is just as much for you as it is for the people interviewing you. And so reciprocate that interview. Asks, like in preparing those questions, this is your opportunity too, to ask those questions. Be really curious. And don't ask the questions you think you're supposed to ask. Ask the ones that you're genuinely curious about, because that will really also reflect who you are and what you're interested in. And that might be specific to the unit or the various types of opportunities that you might have in this role. but really thinking about like walking away from this interview, what do you need to know to be truly excited about this opportunity and feel prepared and excited if you were to be extended an offer.
All right, guys. So we are running short on time, so we're going to only answer 2 questions. First one is, do you send a thank you note afterwards? Do you follow up a thank you note or email, I guess?
Always. Always. And that's when once you know who you are interviewing with, the internet is a creepy place. You can almost always find their contact information. If you can't, feel free to ask them for it at the end of that interview or like before you leave, because a thank you note is extremely professional, and it's really a lot goes into an interview on both sides, and they likely will thank you upon leaving, but it's really, really important that you follow up. And I think kind of what Courtnay touched on too is it's really important. Like they were able to put a face to the name, and now sending that thank you, that follow up will help them remember that even more.
Awesome. Thank you. And then for new grads, or this actually should apply to any nurses, should letters of recommendations or references be included with a resume or just upon request?
So I guess that depends if the question is like, should you bring those to the interview or should they be included when submitting a resume? Courtnay could probably speak to this. I don't know how frequently they're read in exhaustion, since they tend to be very long and full sentences. But it's always good to have them on hand because people will ask for them. And I'd say even if you don't like physically bring them or submit them with a resume, don't let there be set yourself up for success where you have those handy and it's not where people are asking for a letter of recommendation and now you have to go chase someone down for it.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate that. Sarah actually interviewed me, so.
She passed the test.
She's a superstar.
Awesome. So hi, everyone. My name is Ella. Unlike our wonderful other speakers, I'm actually not a nurse, but I'm a product marketing manager here at Trusted. And so what that means is I basically make it easier for nurses to find our tools and get value out of them. So I wanted to just spend a few minutes today, if we go to the next slide, covering some of the new career tools that we've recently launched that you can take coupled with the advice you've heard today and put them into action. So for those of you who might not yet have a Trusted profile, or even of those of you who do, what you might not know is actually that if you fill out your Trusted profile and click the download or save, this teal button, you can download your resume in this clean, sleek, nicely formatted template ready to apply for jobs. We received a few questions like, can I see an example resume? And you sure can. You can see an example resume on your profile page right above that blue download button. So this is great, whether you're looking for your first job or just a new job. If we go to the next slide, another exciting new feature we've launched is the Salary and Facility Explorer. So what you're seeing here is actually the average pay details on a city level for a new grad nurse in Sacramento, California. You can put any city you'd like in the country. Well, we've got about 500 cities accounted for here, and you can see how that hourly salary compares to the state and national levels. On this page for these search results, you can also see things like top facilities in the area. And I'll show you what it looks like if you click one of these top facility pages and want to see details there. But say you're looking for a job in Sacramento, along with the average salary data, you can also see cost of living data towards the bottom of the screen, as well as nearby cities. So say you're not quite sure it's going to be Sacramento, you can also click into San Francisco really easily, or San Jose, or even Reno for that matter. So it really provides some great context for understanding how far your dollar can take you for different jobs or areas of the country you might be interested in. And then if we go to the last slide, this is a super cool new feature that I'm very excited we're releasing in about 2 short weeks. It's a residency program search feature. So it'll be a new tab on your Trusted dashboard that just says residencies. And for our new grads specifically, you'll be able to search by city what residency programs facilities are hiring for. So on the left-hand screen here, you'll see a mock-up. Say you search in San Francisco, you can see the different facilities available in that city who are hiring for residencies. And then when you click on the facility page here, Sutter Medical Center, you can both see some really interesting facility details, as well as the specifics around the residency program. So what specialties they're looking for, as well as a link to the residency program. So no need to Google like new residency programs in Sacramento anymore. You can just come to Trusted and type in what you're looking for and find it all in one spot. You'll actually be able to save these facilities to a saved facility list to come back to later in your job search. So yeah, if you don't have a Trusted profile today, but you're interested in building your resume, exploring some of these salary insights, or any of the other things I've listed here, feel free to go to this link, just trust.ly/signup. We'll also be sending out this presentation as part of your RSVP to this event, so you can always access it there.
Thank you so much, Ella. I think there was like 1 or 2 questions and then we can wrap up. So will the data for the tool be updated every year in the Explorer tool?
Yes, so the data is pulled from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so it should be up to date and updated yearly.
Great. We're out of time for today. I know it was a lot of information packed into 1 hour. We're really appreciative that everyone showed up. As Ella and some of the other folks have said, we will share out this recording so you can go ahead and go through all the data and really craft your resume and craft your search in the way that it's best for you. We're also going to be sending out within the email a way for you all to share how this event worked out for you. Please give us feedback because we have tons of virtual events coming up and we want to make sure that they are best fit for what you're looking for. So thank you all for coming. Have a wonderful day and hopefully we'll see you soon. Bye everyone.